Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today's review is at the Mount Golf and Country Club, which is a little outside of Wolverhampton. This was previously known as Perton Park Golf Club, and for the fans of the Me and My Golf lads, this is where their former coaching home was. More recently, it's been taken over by the family which owns the Mount Hotel, which is roughly about 10 minutes away from the club and is easily the nicest hotel in Wolverhampton. The course is a par 72, and off the yellow tees today we'll be playing a little over 6,500 yards. For the general feel and facilities, I'm going to give this a score of 5 out of 5. A really welcoming club with all the usual sort of amenities you want from a golf club. Good sized pro shop, really good clubhouse and a really good driving range. The club also has a gym and also a dinosaur crazy golf as well. Since the new owners, you can tell that they are putting a lot of money, and I actually read the other day that this is somewhere in the region of about £2 million, which is absolutely amazing to see. I haven't played this course in about sort of 8 or so years, and there really is a noticeable difference in the facilities since I last played. For the course difficulty, I've given this a score of 4 out of 5. This course is pretty tricky in areas, some pretty tight fairways, lots of trees and bushes, which do make for some good risk and reward holes. However, there are plenty of options to find other fairways if you do happen to play a slightly big miss on this hole. The par 3s are pretty tricky, and the par 5s for the long hitters are probably reachable in 2 on the right day. For the course layout, I'm going to give this a score of 3 out of 5. There are quite a lot of holes that are actually really straight, and this does feel quite a bit straight up and straight down in places. There are a couple of interesting quirks, and a lot of the course is sort of surrounded by sort of yellow and red staked areas. There's quite a bit of drainage channels that runs through most of the holes, which can get a bit disappointing at points. For the course condition, I've given this a score of 2 out of 5. The fairways were completely dry. I appreciate that this wasn't necessarily the club's fault, more to do with how the weather leading up to my round was. The tee boxes were actually in really poor condition as well, and this was entirely throughout the course. I was getting some really strange bad lies and some peculiar bounces most of the way around the course, and again, not necessarily the club's fault. The greens were actually saving grace, to be honest. The greens are really well kept, very consistent, and actually, as you'll see in the video a little bit later, really green and sort of really well hydrated, and that was, like I say, all the way around the course. And finally, on to the value. I'm going to give this a score of 4 out of 5. The round cost me £28, which I was actually really happy with. Bit of a shame that the condition of the course was letting it down, but a really great price, and I couldn't argue too much for what I paid. I think peak prices this gets up to about £40 at the weekend, but even still, I'd be quite happy to pay that if the condition of the course was a bit better. So overall, this will give the Mount Golf and Country Club a total score of 18 out of 25. To be honest, the condition of the course will need quite a bit of improvement to get any sort of higher score in this one, but it is really great to see that the effort is being put into the club by the new owners. I'd maybe just give this a couple of years time for them to, once they've done all the clubhouse work and everything else with the driving range, that hopefully they'll focus on the rest of the course. So as normal, we're going to get into each of the 18 holes and just provide a little bit of strategy around each of the holes. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Please make any comments that you wish, and I will happily reply. If not, I'll speak to you next time. Thanks, guys. Hole 1, and a good risk and reward hole here, and actually quite a tough one to open up your round with. The risk here is that the further down the fairway you get, the narrower the fairway gets. For the safe play, I would recommend just laying up short of the 2 fairway bunkers that you'll see in the distance, and this will require playing no more than about 210 yards. This will leave a slightly longer shot into the green, but the alternative is just to take driver, try and get clear of the 2 fairway bunkers, which will need about 240 yards to get clear and leave you a short shot in. For your approach shot though, you will need to navigate past the tree that is sat in the left rough, and this does overhang the green and most of the fairway. This is quite a thin green, so you are going to need to be accurate. So I would just recommend playing the yardage to the middle of the green and aiming to keep this at the front portion of the green, as it is that bit wider. The green is a 2-tier split green, with the back portion of the green being the higher of the 2 tiers. Both tiers are pretty flat when you're on them, but if you are having to put up or down them, pace control is going to be absolutely essential for trying to minimise the amount of putts here. Hole 2 and a good length par 3, and off the tee you are left with little feedback of where the actual green is. There's 2 bunkers protecting the front of this green and they will obstruct the view from most of the green, leaving a seamlessly narrow entrance. This will be where you're wanting to aim. There is also an additional bunker to the back right of this green, so the best play here would just be to play the yardage to the middle of the green, aiming for that gap between the 2 bunkers. You actually got more space around this green than what it does appear, especially out towards the left and towards the right of this green. The green slopes generally down towards the back right of this green, but I really wouldn't expect too much movement from most angles here. Hole 3 and a challenging par 5, and the main aim off the tee is just to get yourself into play. With out of bounds all the way down the left hand side and trees and bushes down the right, there is little room for error off the tee here. For the safe play, I would just aim to keep this short of the water that is on the right hand side, and this will allow you a comfortable opportunity layup before the green. If you feel comfortable with hitting further, then playing somewhere around sort of 250 yards will leave you just short of the red staked hazard that is on the left hand side. Your second shot though will just depend where your first shot finishes, and for the shorter hitters you will just need to try and get past the channel, the yellow staked channel that cuts across the fairway. This will leave roughly about 80 yards to the middle of the green, so a sensible layup will be to somewhere around 100 yards and just take out all the trouble. For the longer hitters, you can aim to get past this channel and leave a short chip onto the green. The green will be a tricky shot to try and stay on, especially if you are hitting from distance. The green slopes down towards the back right of this green. The green also has quite a lot of runoff areas, especially around the front of the green, and this will leave a really tough up and down if you do miss short. I would recommend just aiming for the middle of the green and playing the yardage to the middle as well, but maybe taking a few yards off as the green does sit a little bit lower than the fairway. The green is a long one that is wider at the front and, like I say, does narrow down towards the back of the green. You can expect quite a bit of movement, especially anything if you are putting down towards the back of the green over to that right hand side. Hole 4 and a good length par 4, and off the tee again it's going to be really important for you to get yourself into play. This is due to both sides of the fairway being tree lines, and if you do find these tree lines it's not going to give you a shot to the green. There is a fairway bunker down the left hand side of the fairway, and the ideal shot would be to leave yourself just short of this bunker. This will need something around 220 yards to play it safe. For your approach to the green though, again I would recommend just playing for the heart of the green. There's 3 bunkers protecting the front of this green, 2 on the left and 1 on the right, and there is actually quite an amount of space around this green if you do happen to miss, and this will leave you a sort of good opportunity to get up and down. The green has a gentle slope down towards the front right of this green, but again not one you're going to expect too much movement on from most angles around this green. Hole 5 and a challenging par 4 with a slight dogleg to the left, and the main aim off the tee is to try and reach the corner. This will leave you or need a shot of around 250 yards to give you a clear shot at the green. The line off the tee will be just inside the left hand side of the fairway, and anything past 220 yards the fairway really does open out, especially down that right hand side, so you do have plenty of bailout room if you happen to miss hit it. So I would recommend just playing the yardage for the second shot just to the middle of the green and aiming for the middle of the gap in between the left and the middle bunker. There are 3 bunkers again protecting the short of the green, so ideally we need to get clear of these for a good chance of par. The green is slightly wider at the back, and you do have quite a bit of space if you do happen to miss long. The green has a gentle slope down towards the left hand side of the green, but again don't expect too much movement around this green either. Hole 6 and a relatively short par 4 that plays all the way downhill from tee to green. The main aim off the tee is just to find yourself in play. There's out of bounds all the way down the left and thick trees down the right hand side, leaving you little room for error off the tee. Your ideal shot would be somewhere in between the 2 fairway bunkers, and the first of which comes at 180 yards and the second comes at about 220 yards from the tee. Anything in this region will just leave you a short shot into the green. For the longer hitters you probably could get past that second bunker, but the fairway really does narrow in at this point. For your approach to the green though, you will ideally miss the bunker that is to the right of this green, so aim slightly down the left hand side and just play the yardage to the middle of the green. The green itself slopes gently down towards the right hand side of the green, but don't expect too much movement from most angles around this green. Hole 7 and a challenging par 3. You are playing uphill to the green and you also can't see the bottom of the flag. The view from the tee box though is restricted mainly due to the bushes that are cutting across the fairway and also at the end of the tee box. You actually have a bit more room around the green than you would appear, so anything too far left will be out of bounds and anything too far right will likely find more trees. The aim here is actually just to find the gap that's in the bushes, so this will find you the middle of the green. I would recommend just playing the yardage to the back of the green to factor in that elevation change, and also the green itself is quite a generous size, which does slope down towards the back of the green. Anything around this green, again, you won't see too much movement as it is pretty flat, but a 3-putt is certainly on the cards just due to the size of the green. A relatively short par 5 for hole number 8, and one that you probably won't want to try and overpower. There's out of bounds all the way down the left hand side and trees running pretty much the entirety of the right hand side. Off the tee though, I would just try to find yourself in play, so give yourself a sort of comfortable shot. You will also need to be mindful of the yellow stake drainage that runs across the fairway, and this comes across at about 300 yards. So the main aim for your second shot is just to try and get beyond this channel and ultimately leave yourself a comfortable yardage into the green. You aren't probably going to want to take this green on in 2, and this is mainly just due to the water that is sat front left of the green. If you do fancy getting a bit closer, I would just play to the right hand side of the green and also just play the yardage to the front of the green as well. This green is angled diagonally up to the left with the one bunker towards the back right. And if you're unsure of trying to find the middle of the green, again, just lay up short and just try and get yourself up and down from there. The green slopes down towards the back left of this green. You probably can expect a bit of movement, especially on those longer putts, but again, everything's just going to filter down towards that left side. Hole 9, and undoubtedly the hardest hole on the course. Your tee shot will be playing uphill from the tee box, so you will likely need a few more yards just to try and make the dogleg left that is in this hole. There's also a yellow stake water hazard out on the left hand side of the corner, so if anything, just bail out to the right as this will give you a slightly longer shot into the green. There is also a path that cuts across the fairway at about 210 yards, and you will likely need something about 220-230 yards to try and get clear of this path, but this is a really narrow landing spot, so I'd aim just short of the path and just leave yourself that longer shot in. For most golfers, you are going to have at least one shot on this hole, so I'd almost use this to your advantage. Most golfers just aim to leave yourself short of the green for the second shot. Anything too far left or too far right, you're going to find more trouble. There's another bit of water towards the left hand side of the green, so like I say, if anything, just lay up short and use that extra shot that you have. The green is pretty flat from most angles, and there is a slight slope down towards that left hand side, but again, not one you're going to find too much movement here. Hole 10, and a good length par 3 that plays entirely downhill from the tee box. I would recommend just playing the yardage to the front of this green, and as this will allow for the elevation change, and also the best miss to this green is going to be short. Anything missed left of this hole will likely result in a lost ball. There's also 2 bunkers either side of the middle of the green, making this green appear quite thin in the middle. The green slopes generally down towards the front left of this green, and you probably can expect a bit of movement, especially from those longer putts, but anything around the middle of the green is reasonably flat. Hole 11, and a challenging par 4 here. This is a long par 4 that will play entirely its yardage due to it being uphill from tee to green. This is also a really thin fairway to try and find, with very little forgiveness either side. There's thick trees and bushes all the way down the left hand side, and those drainage channels running down the right hand side again. Missing right here will actually be better than missing left. Your shot off the tee though will just need to get yourself into play, and ideally playing something around the 210 to 220 yard mark, as this will find a gap that's in the bushes in the left hand side. Your shot to the green will also need to be playing slightly uphill, so I would recommend just playing at least the yardage to the middle of the green, if not to the back of the green, as this will help you get clear of the bunker that is short right. The green is pretty flat from most angles, and if anything, there is a bit of a slope down from the middle of the green to either back and front of this green. Again, not one you're probably going to expect too much movement on, but again, you might need to put a little bit more on it if you are putting uphill. Hole 12, and a short par 4 here, and as this is stroke index at 18, this is one for probably the longer hitters for trying to get into as close to the green as possible. The safe play here is actually just to try and play to the right hand side of the fairway bunker that you see in the distance. This will come at roughly 200 yards. There is more space out to the right than would appear off the tee, so you have got a bit of room for error, but you're also going to need about 230 yards to try and clear the bunker. For your approach to the green though, best just to find the heart of the green. This is quite a generous sized green, and there is that one bunker to the left hand side. There's plenty of space around this green if you do happen to miss hit, but it is quite a big green, so if you are having to put long distance, a 3-putt is certainly on the cards here. So just aim for that middle of the green and just give yourself a good opportunity for getting down in 2. Hole 13, and a good length par 3 here, and another hole that does play uphill towards the green. Off the tee though, it's going to be really important to try and get clear of the bunker and the tree that is sat at the front of this green, so I would recommend just playing the yardage to the back of the green, as this will also factor in the elevation change as well. There is no real miss to this hole, so your best aim would just be to aim to the left hand side of the bunker, and you'll see a tree just behind that, and that's going to be your rough line for the middle of the green. If anything, you can miss right, but you'll be lucky to get a clean shot towards the green, as you will be in a bunch of trees. The green itself has a gentle slope down towards the front of this green, but again, not one you're going to expect too much movement from unless you are putting from the edges of this green. Hole 14, and a long par 4, however the majority of this hole does play downhill. Off the tee though, I would recommend choosing either something between 150 to 200 yards or between 230 to 250 yards, as this will help you to find the gaps that are in the left hand side. This will give you a little bit more room for error if you do happen to miss hit it. Again, this is quite a narrow fairway, but you do have 2 holes either side, so if you are going to miss big to try and help you find a little bit of clean grass. For your approach to the green though, I would recommend just playing the yardage to the front of the green, as there's a little bit more room for error either side at the front of this green. The green is also widest at the front, making that hit a little bit easier. The green is pretty flat from most angles, so don't expect too much movement from any of angles around this green. Hole 15, and a good length par 4. This is a difficult tee shot. This is just due to the thin fairway, and it actually gets narrower the further you get down. There's 2 fairway bunkers down the right hand side, and this is roughly at 220 yards, so ideally off the tee you just want to try and lay up short of that. This will leave you roughly a sort of 200 yard shot into the green though. If you are one of the longer hitters, you do have the option to take on these fairway bunkers, but you will need to be mindful that anything missed right at this point will likely result in losing your ball. Your miss at this range will actually be left, so aim to the left hand side of the fairway just to sort of miss anything going right. For your shot to the green though, I would recommend playing the yardage to the middle of the green and aiming slightly down the left hand side of this green. This will help out miss the bunker that is short right, and the green also opens up towards the back, but playing long of this green will also find trees, and again will likely result in a lost ball. The green has a gentle slope down towards the front of this green, but I wouldn't expect too much movement unless you are putting the entire length of this green. Hole 16, and a good length par 5 that does play slightly downhill from the tee box. The main aim off the tee though is just to get yourself into play. If anything, you can favour the right hand side of the fairway, as the trees down the left hand side are pretty thick and will result in you losing your ball. Ideally off the tee though, you will just need to play short of the yellow stake channel that is cutting across the fairway, and aiming to play over this for your second shot. This channel comes at roughly 300 yards, so for the longer hitters there is an opportunity to try and get as close to this as possible. For the second shot though, you will need to think about the yardage that you want into the green. There's a fairway bunker that's sat about 50 to 60 yards from the middle of the green, and this will give you a good shot into the green from here. This is a long green and is quite thin, so accuracy is going to be really important for that third shot. For the yardage though, you will just need to find out where the pin is. So if the pin is at the back, then I would play the yardage to the back of the green, but if it's at the front or the middle, then I would favour the front of the green for yardage. There's two bunkers, one short left and one middle of the green on the right, and this green slopes generally down towards the front of this green. But due to its length, pace control is going to be essential, and you can expect some movement, especially if putting across or diagonally to on this green. Hole 17, and one of the shorter par 4s, but this is a super thin fairway to try and find. Ideally off the tee you will need to aim somewhere between the two fairway bunkers, and these are positioned roughly 175 yards and 240 yards from the tee box. I would ideally take aim at the left side of the bunker that you see in the right hand side of the fairway, so the one that's in the distance. You will have more room for error down the right hand side of this fairway, but it's going to be really important to actually just find the fairway here. For your approach to the green, I would recommend playing no more than the yardage to the middle of the green, as this green slopes from front to back and there are trees at the back, and this will result in a lost ball as well. Again, really little room for error here, and if anything I would favour the right hand side of this green, as this will give the most room for error. There's a drainage channel all the way down the left hand side, so you really are not going to want to flirt down that side. Again, I would expect some movement, especially if you are putting across or diagonally on this green, and again pace control is going to be essential if you are putting the length of this green. Hole 18, and finally a par 5 with a dog leg to the right to finish off with. The safe option off the tee though is to play for the bunker that you see in the turn in the fairway, and this will be at roughly 200 yards from the tee. For the longer hitters you can afford to cut the corner off a little bit, but the line for this is the tree line, and actually anything missed to the right of this hole will likely result in a lost ball, so sometimes it might not actually be worth the risk taking on this longer shot. For the second shot though, you would ideally leave yourself a comfortable yardage to the middle of the green. The fairway actually runs out with about 85 yards to the middle of the green, so anything short of that should give you a good comfortable approach shot to the green. For your approach to the green though, I would recommend just playing to the front of the green, as this is the widest part of the green. There's one bunker that is at the right hand side in the middle of the green, so anything short of that will take that out of play. The green is pretty flat from most angles, so don't expect too much movement from around this green, but again pace control is going to be essential if you are having to put the full length of this hole.